from West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for the Legislature Today is provided by the following.
The West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission, working with students and families to improve college access and student success for a better West Virginia.
Good evening. I'm Andrea Lanham for West Virginia Public Broadcasting at the Capitol Building, and this is the Legislature Today. Tonight, an in-depth look at West Virginia's community and technical college system and a bill that creates a grant program specifically for its students. But first, several impassioned speeches in both the House and Senate today about the rising cost of public employee insurance and teacher salaries. In the Senate, a teacher's salary bill was on the amendment stage. Senior reporter Dave Mistich reports.
At least part of that teacher frustration has come into focus with Senate Bill 267, which would increase pay for teachers, school service personnel, and state police. With the bill on second reading, an amendment offered by Minority Leader Roman Prezioso called for a 3% raise instead of 1%.
When we look at what the 1% that the governor has proposed over 5 years, let's take 1% a year. When you break it down, teachers take-home pay is what, $34 a month? You can't hardly see that in a pay stub. But yet, their PEI premiums have gone up approximately $48 a month. That doesn't even wash out. Not to mention the deductibles are going up from $1,150 to $1,450 out of pocket when they go to the doctor. They've got to accumulate a certain amount of cost. That's going up. All this adds up. And at the end of the day, when they see what they make and what they're going to get and what they have to pay, just doesn't wash out.
While Senate Bill 267 focuses on increases in pay, discussion on the bill turned towards rising PEIA costs for teachers and other state employees. Democrats like Senator Richard Ojeda says that's one of the things most discussed by educators.
Now, I look across this room here, and I'm going to be honest with you. I see a lot of lawyers. I see doctors, and that's great. And your salaries show that. Your doctors, your lawyers. You've got 7+ years in the classroom in higher education to make the big bucks that you make. But you know, the majority of our teachers in our classrooms have a master's plus 45. And we pay them absolutely nothing. Now, as a person who spent 4 years in a classroom, every day during lunch, I sit down with teachers. And the discussion was always the same thing about how PEIA, and I know we're not talking PEIA, but that was something that ripped a part of their benefits, and it cost them more money in their pockets. And that's why it's important.
Republicans, though, argue that the problems surrounding teacher pay have been a long time coming, with West Virginia's average teacher salary slipping downward nationally over the past few decades. Senator Patricia Rucker, another former educator, says lawmakers have other obligations in front of them this session, and they cannot fund additional pay increases at the moment.
This is a state that is struggling from lack of professionals. And we are trying to fix a problem that wasn't created in one day or 1 year. And the solution is not just money. I wish that we could just pay teachers right now the amount that I would consider worthwhile, which is an even larger amount than what the senator has proposed with this amendment. But the fact remains that we have to balance the needs of all of our constituents and all of our citizens.
Others, like Judiciary Chair Charlie Trump, argue that Prezioso's amendment comes down to some sort of funding mechanism, one that he says that hasn't yet found its way in front of the Senate.
While I have to oppose the senator's amendment right now, what I will say here in his presence and in the presence of every West Virginian is, if we bring to this floor a budget that will cut the Medicaid budget by $20 million, I would be delighted to spend that on teacher pay, and will vote to do so. But right now, with no mechanism evident or agreed upon to fund the additional money that would be provided by this amendment, I have to vote no.
Prezioso's amendment calling for a 3% pay increase failed 22-12 on a party line vote, which further throws into question what might happen with the possibility of a teachers' strike. American Federation of Teachers President Christine Campbell says the amendment's failure isn't necessarily an instant catalyst for a strike, but that it's one part of a multifaceted set of concerns from teachers.
That's the thing. I mean, people are frustrated and they're happy that the discussions are happening, but these things take time, and I don't know that these folks can wait.
Campbell says that some groups aren't waiting anymore, and that frustration has turned into action.
I know that counties have scheduled meetings. Some counties are actually having second meetings, and that they are continuing to meet. They already have meetings scheduled up into mid-February. So the counties are talking about voting to authorize. We've actually called for folks to come down here on a Saturday on the 17th to talk about their issues, to celebrate any wins, and talk about what we're going to do in losses. We have talked about having a statewide meeting of local leaders, and there are some counties who have said they're coming.
Moving forward, Senate President Mitch Carmichael says he hopes teachers realize that lawmakers are aiming to fund PEIA with another $10 million this year. As for talks of a strike, Carmichael says teachers should hold off and trust the legislature is working to address concerns.
If their objective with a strike is to get the attention of the legislature, I would say it's completely unnecessary. They have our attention. We're listening to it. We're working with the leaders of their unions and so forth. And I would be, I really encourage those who are contemplating a strike to just take a step back and say, look, the legislature is listening to us. They're trying very hard. They've given us a small pay raise. Yeah, I agree it's not enough, but it's all that we have right now. As we get more money, we are committed to raising teacher salaries and making sure that they are compensated at a level that's commensurate with their peers across the nation.
Senate Bill 267 was advanced to third reading and is up for a vote in the Senate Friday. For the Legislature Today, I'm Dave Mistich at the Capitol.
A press release from the governor's office late this afternoon announced the PEIA Finance Board will conduct public hearings starting February 12th on a proposal from the governor. He's asking the board to change its policy to reduce premiums for all families that have dual state incomes, including teachers. This week, the West Virginia Senate unanimously passed a bill to make in-state community and technical colleges free if multiple requirements are met. We'll talk about those requirements and the impact this bill could have on the college system with its chancellor. But first, Liz McCormick takes a closer look at CTCs and their focus on workforce training.
We first heard rumblings about a bill to make community and technical colleges free to everyone in West Virginia in December, when Senate President Mitch Carmichael announced he was drafting a proposal with that focus in mind for the 2018 state legislative session. And in Governor Jim Justice's State of the State address, we heard more to that effect. It was only 5 days after the governor's address that a bill to make CTCs free or more affordable was introduced in the West Virginia Senate. Located here in the Eastern Panhandle in Martinsburg, Berkeley County, Blue Ridge Community and Technical College is one of 9 public CTCs in West Virginia that could feel the effects of Senate Bill 284. Leslie See., Vice President of Enrollment Management at Blue Ridge, says community and technical colleges fill a role in producing an educated workforce with the skills needed for today's jobs.
The cycle of education, when you look at it historically, is that there was a divide between what skills were needed for labor positions and the baccalaureate degree. So community college really filled that gap now, because the workforce now has automation, it has robotics, it has a new level of technology. Even if you don't stay current with even using a computer, you can get behind very quickly. So the education a community college provides is giving those technical, tangible skills.
West Virginia's CTCs work closely with local employers to help fill demand in each geographic region. In the Eastern Panhandle, Blue Ridge provides training for careers in cybersecurity, software development, manufacturing, and healthcare.
Really, we have a little bit of everything, whether it's short term, whether it's an associate's degree, certification. Really, we have over 70 degrees and certificates to choose from.
According to the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission, jobs in manufacturing, IT, and healthcare are all in demand in the state. And to be qualified for those jobs, several only need a degree or certification from a CTC. Musselman High School senior Alexandria Cox wants to be a nurse. She's looking to get her associate's degree from Blue Ridge.
I'm a big heart. Like, I'm a giver. I'm a people pleaser. I just like seeing people smile and get better.
Cox just turned 18 and would like to eventually take her nursing degree into the military. There are several industry partnerships at Blue Ridge, and the oldest is its nursing program. Cox will get real-world training while she studies at Blue Ridge in the form of clinical rotations at Berkeley Medical Center, which is part of WVU Medicine. Cox says she's excited about the idea of training at Berkeley Medical Center and notes she has a friend who's already in the program.
She goes here and she does do her clinical trials, and she says she loves it. So that makes me even more excited, because that's someone who goes here and she does the clinical trials. She says it's great. You meet new people. You get insight on what your occupation is gonna be, what her career is going to look forward to.
Being able to have a partnership with Blue Ridge allows us to expand our services and to have nurses who can come into our workforce. So when we do new services, for example, opening a NICU or a cath lab and so forth, we need additional personnel to do that. And without having Blue Ridge as a technical school to be able to graduate nurses in a 2-year program, that allows us to meet the needs of the continued growth and development, which is great for our community.
Richard says Berkeley and Jefferson Medical Centers don't differentiate between a bachelor's degree and an associate's degree in nursing.
Starting out as a brand new nurse, usually starting out you can make about $37,000 to $42,000 a year as a nurse. So for somebody who went to a 2-year program, it's really a nice starting point for a salary.
Community and technical colleges can provide an affordable first step for many prospective students. And Leslie C. at Blue Ridge hopes Senate Bill 284 will help more people see the potential CTCs bring to the table.
Let community colleges not be a second choice or a second chance, which they can be a second chance, but also let it be a first consideration, because there are so many opportunities at your community college that really people need to explore.
In its current form, Senate Bill 284 would create a grant program of $7 million for tuition and fees at a community and technical college for students to use after all other forms of financial aid have been exhausted. For the Legislature Today, I'm Liz McCormick in Berkeley County.
Joining us is Dr. Sarah Armstrong Tucker, Chancellor of the West Virginia Community and Technical College System. Chancellor Tucker, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So this is going to be transformational to the West Virginia Community and Technical College System if this passes, won't it?
It will be amazing. I'm so thrilled, first of all, that we're even in a position where we're talking about reinvesting in higher education in West Virginia after so many years of cuts. This is a huge, huge, huge change. But it's really, really important for our students and for the citizens of West Virginia to know that college is affordable, and that's exactly what this bill does.
Is there any estimate to the increase that this is going to have on enrollment?
We're estimating about a 20% increase. That's the same estimate that both Tennessee and Oregon estimated when they implemented similar programs.
So let's talk about some of the requirements of Senate Bill 284. Why would these students need to be drug tested every semester and promise that they will stay in the state 2 years after?
So I know that might raise some eyebrows and cause some people concern, but let me tell you the reality of our students. Most of our students, or many of our students, are in technical programs where they are already being drug tested. They have to go through different testing requirements as part of their degrees that force them to be drug-free when they enter the workforce. We also serve a number of students who are dislocated workers who go through WIOA. We also serve a number of folks who come through DHHR, so they're going through TANF, et cetera. Those folks are also already drug tested. So I think when people are worried about that or wondering, gosh, what is this requirement? It's not that it's frankly a new requirement, it's just that it's written down in a different way than before. Now with the 2-year residency requirement, one of the things that I'm really proud of with the community college system is that 92% of our students are West Virginia residents. 71% are immediately found in the West Virginia workforce upon graduation, and another 15% are immediately found transferring to a 4-year West Virginia public institution. So you're talking about 85–86% of our students who we know immediately upon graduation are already in West Virginia. So that 2-year residency requirement, frankly, is right in line with who our students are anyways.
I know Promise Scholarship recipients aren't required to do that, though.
Promise Scholarship recipients are very mobile. Promise Scholars are the best and brightest in our state. Many of them go on to graduate school, and that means necessarily that a lot of them are moving on to out-of-state schools to finish their graduate degree, and then ultimately they come back to West Virginia.
Now for the drug testing requirement, do students have to pay for that every semester?
As the bill is currently written, students are paying for those drug tests. We are going to be working with Workforce West Virginia and with DHHR to make sure that students aren't having to drug test multiple times. So if they have to drug test as part of their requirements for dollars under the WIOA legislation or dollars under whatever program they're in with DHHR, they're not going to have to do that twice.
Now, some believe that this is casting a net of suspicion over students in community and technical colleges instead of those who attend four-year colleges.
You mean because the same requirements aren't part of Promise?
Yeah.
I can understand that perception and that argument, but I think what they're trying to accomplish with this legislation is to make sure that we have a drug-free workforce. This program is specifically targeted at workforce development in the state of West Virginia and making sure that we have people in technical programs.
I know that some have mentioned concerns about the residency requirement after graduation, saying what if they can't find jobs afterwards? Is that a concern that you have too?
Well, there's an appeals process in place, and there's a way that they can contact the system office to say, I have hardship right now, I can't pay this back, and we can work with any of those students. But the truth is that we're talking about putting students into programs that are high need in the state of West Virginia. I have employers come to me all the time and say that they need people, and we need to get people in seats. There was just a story recently done in the Northern Panhandle about our petroleum tech students. We have a 30-person program, and we only have 14 people in the program. All of them have been hired immediately upon graduation by the oil and gas industry, but I can't get enough people into that program.
So describe some of these technical degrees where the jobs are available upon graduation.
So manufacturing broadly is a broad category. There are many, many, many positions in manufacturing. We can't keep our mechatronics students in the programs because they get hired out of them so quickly. Oil and gas industry, I know that the oil and gas industry has had a bit of a slump, but what has happened is that the companies are hiring West Virginia graduates and they're replacing the folks who are coming out of state from Texas and other states with our West Virginia graduates. So we actually have seen a steady line of employment for our grads in those programs. Anything in allied health, healthcare field, nursing, for heaven's sakes, I mean, anywhere you look, they're in demand for nurses in the state of West Virginia.
What can you say about Southern West Virginia that's really hurting for jobs?
Nursing. The healthcare system in Southern West Virginia really needs some help right now. And so I would focus a lot of attention on healthcare down there.
So private colleges in the state have stepped forward, upset that the grant program will lure students away from their schools. And they've wanted the Senate to amend the bill to make the grant process acceptable to those private schools. What does this bill allow for at this point?
The bill allows at this point for public community and technical colleges and private community colleges that have regional accreditation. I know that there's been a lot of interest and push to get even the first 2 years of four-year education free and private colleges free as well. When we did an estimate on that to see just how much that would increase the fiscal note, we're talking upwards of $67 million. It's a lot of money. It's a big increase. One of the reasons, besides the technical programming, to start this at the community colleges, that our tuition is significantly lower. And so it helps make it a much more affordable program for states. I would say to those colleges, just give us a second to figure out if we can make this work and make sure that we're modeling this appropriately. And then maybe that becomes part of a larger initiative or legislation down the road.
So should they be feeling a competition with you then?
I don't think so. I don't think that we have the same students. The students that are going into community colleges are going into very specific technical programs. The students who are going to private baccalaureate institutions are going into very different types of programs. The experience of a community college student is very different than the experience of a four-year institution student. A prime example among that is that we don't have dorms. So if you're looking for the residential life that you would get at a four-year college, it's going to be different at a community college.
I remember too in some of your presentations you talked about the average age of community college students too.
Our students' average age is 29 years old. Half of our students, more than half of our students, go to school part-time. We have a lot of working parents, and that's just a very different demographic than what the privates or the four-years serve right now.
Now, a fiscal note supplied by the college system estimated a cost of $8 million. Did you use the number of students currently enrolled, or did you use the estimated increase in enrollment?
We used the number of students currently enrolled and then estimated 20% increase on that.
So let's change gears a little bit and talk about the technical programs offered throughout the state and the links with businesses, the very nice salaries that can be made with these two-year degrees. We've featured a story of the medical degree that's offered. Tell us about some of the high-tech degrees offered, where graduates are finding employment, and in what level of compensation.
Sure, so graduates are finding employment all over the state of West Virginia. The community colleges partner with more than 700 employers across the state. Some of those are small companies, some of them are quite large companies. Leslie C. from Blue Ridge was talking about a partnership that they have with hospitals out in Berkeley County, but Procter & Gamble is out there as well, and they have more than 700 people that they're trying to employ, and they're using Blue Ridge as their primary training provider. Down here in Charleston, we have Bridge Valley. Bridge Valley has partnerships with Gestamp, with Toyota, with Chemours. The list goes on and on. Parkersburg has similar programs in chemical manufacturing and has several long-standing programs up there. New River is really getting a reputation for its electrical lineman program and has been working with different groups to try to make sure that they can get linemen trained and into the workforce. Northern and Pierpont obviously have a focus on the oil and gas industry and have several relationships with companies in their areas as well.
So talk about the impact of economic development in improving the workforce and educating the workforce.
Sure, so we have about a 4-to-1 return on investment in the state of West Virginia. That is that we have we put about $220 million back into the state the last time that we did a return on investment study of the community colleges. We have several different ways that we partner with business and industry. We can provide training programs specifically for a company if that's what they want. We can provide short-term training programs as short as a couple of weeks or a couple of days. We can provide long-term training programs up to 2 years. We work with companies who are interested in providing internships for our students through a program that we call the Learn and Earn program, where students go to school while simultaneously working for a company. That allows the student to have a wage while they're going to school and is one of the main ways that our adult students can get through some of their programs.
Now, what are some of the other weeds that need to be sifted through in implementation of this grant program?
Well, we're going to have a lot of things that we need to sort of think about during implementation. One, of course, will be how we market it to the state of West Virginia, make sure that folks understand what we're talking about, what the grant will do, and how they can use it to their benefit. We're going to have some wrinkles figuring out the drug testing requirement. Again, we have a lot of that in place at the campuses, but it's going to have to be ramped up a little bit, so we're going to have to figure some of that out. And we're going to have to put some policies around how we monitor both the community service component, because there's a community service component of this grant, and the 2-year residency requirement.
As the bill's making its way through the process on the House side, I know that they have a few different ideas. Are there any changes that you want to see them make to this bill?
Well, what I'd really like to do is just sit down with them and see where they are and what they're interested in doing. I want this to be a piece of legislation that everyone can be excited about and proud of, and I certainly am right now, and I know that that's going to continue into the future.
We have about a minute left. What would your message be for House members?
Our House membership has been really terrific in supporting our community and technical colleges. They have always been. They understand the important role that our community colleges play. They understand the role that the colleges in their own districts play. And I know that they're going to do what they can to make sure that they continue to support our colleges.
Well, Dr. Sarah Tucker, Chancellor of the West Virginia Community and Technical College System, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
That concludes our time tonight. Please join us tomorrow for our Friday gathering of State House reporters. We'll discuss the bills that are making their way through the process and the ones that seem stalled. Remember, you can watch lawmakers live here on the West Virginia Public Broadcasting. Coverage of tomorrow's floor sessions from both the House and Senate begins at 11 o'clock in the morning on the West Virginia channel. For the Legislature Today, I'm Andrea Lanham. Thanks for joining us and have a good night.